All right. Call to order. Here's the chief admonishing my kid not to skateboard in the street. Max now knows he knows all the police from his skateboarding activities now. He's met everything.
Into the communal cafe, or is it parked outside?
It's serving coffee.
It's serving coffee. Okay, good evening and welcome. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023, and it is exactly 6:30 p.m. Who would like to do the Nisenan land recognition today, the full version? Anybody?
I will take it if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I would love to have you do that.
Thank you. We acknowledge that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible. We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As a resident or visitor in the Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as their campaign to restore federal recognition.
Thank you. All right, if you all would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I will lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Madam Deputy Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Ceci.
Here.
Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Fett.
Here. All right, now it's time for the adoption of the agenda. Are there any modifications? Anybody want to pull a consent item? Any changes, recusals? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda.
I second.
There we go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, it passes 5-0. Okay, so we have some presentations today, and unfortunately, John is not here today. He is injured. I am sorry. I hope your leg gets better, John, but we're going to carry on without you. It is the 50th anniversary of Recreation Realty, and we have a wonderful proclamation honoring this momentous event. Whereas business initiation, development, growth, and expansion are important threads that bind strong communities, and Recreation Realty is open for business at 432 Broad Street. And whereas Recreation Realty has been in business in Nevada County since 1973 and expanded to Broad Street as a second location in the historic downtown. And whereas John Hensley, the owner of Recreation Realty, notes, we are overflowing with gratitude as we reflect on the remarkable journey of 50 years in this breathtaking community. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the awe-inspiring Sierra Nevada, the vibrant towns, the wonderful people who have made this journey truly unforgettable. And whereas a 50th anniversary celebration ceremony will be held at Recreation Realty on Friday, July 7th, 2023 at 5 p.m. That's Friday, July 7th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Whereas the 50th anniversary celebration ceremony will be an opportunity for the city, community, visitors, and other businesses to visit and enjoy Recreation Realty. And whereas the City Council and the City of Nevada City wish to recognize and applaud businesses as investors in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Nevada City does hereby honor the 50th anniversary celebration of Recreation Realty and urges those who visit, live, work, and play in Nevada City to eat and shop local by attending the 50th anniversary celebration ceremony. Ceremony July 7th. I guess that's, everybody should shop locally and buy a house.
Yeah.
All right, and when you're feeling better, we'll present to you this wonderful proclamation. All right, so let's talk about coffee with cops and a horse.
And a dog.
And a dog. And a menagerie.
Ruby wasn't.
Ruby too?
Ruby's gonna try to be there, but Ruby's training tonight, so we'll see what time she gets off. But she works till 4, so we'll see.
4 in the morning?
Yeah. We'll see how
Wow.
exhausted she are. But we will have Sunny.
Sunny the horse.
And we'll have Ruby at most of these events.
Wow.
But yeah, we have Coffee with the Cop tomorrow. It's from 8 to 10. I know you were asking, is Ruby gonna go, or is Sunny gonna go inside? Maybe do a walkthrough, but I've yet to meet anybody that can potty train a horse, so they tend to just, and that's, even as a mini horse, that's quite a mess, so mostly she'll be outside. But
Seems wise.
she is, she's very friendly, so it gives a chance for the community to meet her. What this is about though, I mean, it is nice having the mini horse there and having a bunch of officers there, but it's super important that everybody understands, like we were just reading on that proclamation, that we are members of the community. We want to be involved in the community, and unfortunately, in our line of work, a lot of times when people are contacting officers or speaking with the officers, it's not a great event, unfortunately, because of what we do. Normally, when you're talking to us, it's for a ticket. You're usually not very happy, or you've called the police to your house, which you're usually not calling us for a exciting event. So this is an opportunity for us to make sure that everybody gets to know our officers, know that we are a part of the community and want to be a part of the community, and just to break bread and enjoy the morning. So this is our first one. We're hoping to do these once a month or so. So tomorrow we'll be at the Communal from 8 to 10. Next month we'll have some more information out as it gets closer, but on your calendars it's July 25th for the tentative date, and it's Chill Out with a Cop, and it'll be at the Treats Ice Cream Parlor. But we're trying to hit both downtown.
In the morning?
That one will be a little later in the day. That's pretty early for ice cream. But, and we'll be doing Seven Hills probably the one after that.
Cool.
But if you don't have any questions, I hope everybody can make it there. And
Who's going to be in attendance, like, as a human?
we're going to have most of our, or not most, we're going to have several of our officers from the department, myself included. And we've actually got a lot of support from some of the other law enforcement and fire community. So we'll have several members of the fire community there, so of all the different fire agencies locally. We're going to have some members, and I believe Jesse from the DA's office will be there in attendance. And yeah, we'll grow from there, but that's just through word of mouth. People have heard about it and asked if they could be involved as well. And of course, everybody's welcome.
I bet you you'll have a good turnout. I'll check.
I hope so.
I want to stop by. I have an 8:30, but I will stop by on my way.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for me?
Anybody?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's do 2 more. 1, 2, 3. All right, I got them. I got several. Hopefully one turns out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, and now I'm going to present myself with the recognition of Mayor Fleming by Mr. City Manager.
Yes, the reason for the picture, this is our last opportunity to have a meeting where we'll sit in this configuration, but we'll have another bit of time together in a different configuration. So 1-year rotations of mayors in the city went by, I don't know how it went for you, Mayor. For me, it went like that.
It went really fast, really fast.
In a lot of cities, the mayor, not an insult, but in a lot of cities, the mayor can come to the meetings, run the meetings, go home, and not do anything else. In small cities that want to be high functioning and get a lot of things done, it takes a lot more effort than that by the mayor and all the council members, but in preparing for the meetings and to execute on the things that the community expects of us, it takes a lot more. And so we have a thank you for Mayor Fleming, and we're not going to read a book about you tonight. I'm sure we could write a book about you tonight, but I'd like
throw the book at
yeah, sure. Vice Mayor Fernandez has some of your accomplishments from the last year to share.
I will be reading the book this evening.
Not thrilled.
Doug, congratulations
thank you.
on completing your term, nearly completing your term as mayor. Something I'm very proud of, to have been a part of with you on this council is taking the steps necessary for leadership change at the city. And we did that in our first year together.
Yes, we did.
Not a small task for a couple of newbies.
Yep.
And as you mentioned recently in your State of the City Union article, you did indeed get more votes than me, which means that, yes, you sat as mayor first. And it just so happens that your year as mayor coincided with this man's first year as our city manager. And with that combination, your term as mayor became a year of firsts. And I'd like to take a few minutes to name some of those firsts. A new best practices budget format, the city's first 5-year capital improvement plan, our first community-driven strategic plan, the city's first legislative platform, and a new vacant storefronts ordinance, to name a few. I think one of the things that I've heard you say the most at this table, or speak the most to, is grants. Whether it's, mentioning that that's your line of work, or just noting there's money for that, or let's look at grants for that. And so just to name a few of your accomplishments as mayor during your term, you were influential in securing $3 million for the city over the next 5 years through the Prop 64 Cohort 3 grant. And also securing funding in collaboration with Nancy Weber for the planning portion of the Deer Creek Hazardous Vegetation Project. So kudos on bringing money into the city for those important things. You've also been an advocate on revisioning the use of the Tech Center, which now has an eclectic mix of businesses and will soon be the host site for the Roman Angels Car Show. And you've served on the Courthouse Task Force in partnership with the county to ensure the city's economic and historical interests are preserved in the process. So I want to congratulate you on your accomplishments and thank you for your year.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And, oh, I get a little statue? Wow.
It looks,
Look at this thing.
it looks
I don't wanna sit on
dangerous.
it.
I know, that's exactly what I wasn't,
says nobody hangs plaques on the wall anymore.
I wasn't gonna say that. I wasn't gonna say that, but I've been thinking that ever since.
I said the quiet part out loud. This is really nice. Thank you, guys. But, I'd like to just first say that anything I did, well, most of the things I did with you. This was a team effort, and I have to say, I appreciate this council, and it's been a pleasure serving as mayor in this capacity with you folks. When I heard from our colleagues here about some of the other councils that they had and that they've been party to, I didn't realize that we're one of the best functioning, in these guys' view, councils. And Gary, you've seen a lot of this too. I thought
Very little of this, and a whole lot of the other.
Yeah. So, I think that, the mayor position is nice. You get to run the meetings, you do a ribbon cutting or two. But the work that we do together is really what motivates me, because it takes all of us to move the needle on the things. And I really do think we all should be proud of the regime change that we instituted here. And we've ended up with some wonderful people. We have Dean, we got Sean, we got Dan, and we still have Brian in a new exalted capacity, which is just wonderful. So, yeah, it has been an honor to just do the work. And I love the fact that in this small town, we can do things like $3 million means a lot to our town. I bring $3 million into some other towns, and you're like, yeah, whatever. This means a lot to us, and it means a lot to me. The fire stuff is really important, and collaborating with the community is really important. Nancy Weber was just an amazing powerhouse and leader in getting that grant done, and if it wasn't for her whipping me and keeping me going, we wouldn't have gotten that money for 375 acres and, trying to plan some fire mitigation stuff. So thank you all. I appreciate it. I look forward to it. We have another year left. What do we have?
We have another year.
We have another year starting right. This is the final year of our term. Yeah. So I look forward to the final year, and I really do look forward to your mayorship, Daniela, and I'm going to support you the best way I can. And I think it'll be a fun time, and I'm excited to see what that brings. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Let's move on to business and not be here all night.
Okay, well, okay.
All right.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Very
all.
well said.
Thank you. And also, a big thanks to staff. None of this stuff would have gotten done. Anything I think about, staff has to execute, so thank you.
Sometimes I find it's useful to thank my family, especially if they're present.
Right? We actually just had a long We actually just had a long conversation about that at home, and my family is very supportive of that. We do. And Marley tricked me into being up here anyway, so I thank her for that, and I really do love my family, and thank you guys for showing up, All
That's
right.
better.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for reminding my family, and my mother, she's not watching. And I'd like to just say hi to Daniela's mother,
Hey!
who I know is watching and just a nice person.
You'll
So,
meet her at the next meeting.
she's coming?
She's coming.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, your whole family?
Susie and Juan.
Oh, my goodness, that's so exciting. That'll be exciting, because I know she's one of probably our most avid viewers.
Yeah, she's gonna buy a house, move here, and also run for council.
Keep it all in the family. I love that. What's your mother's name?
Susan.
Hi, Susan. Okay, so that's wonderful. I can't wait to meet her. Anyway, let's get on to public comment. Public comment, Government Code Section 5495-4.3 provides that any member of the public may address the city council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exception, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that comments from the public will be also taken on each agenda item at the time it is heard. Okay, so is there any general public comment on anything not on the agenda here or in cyberspace?
There's not, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody in cyberspace?
Couple of panelists.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, so they have to be there. All right, consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda were considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. I'm looking for a motion and second to approve the agenda calendar.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Oh, for the consent agenda? Oh, sorry. For the record. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda here or abroad? No, okay, thank you. Thank you, Dean. All right, so I have a motion, we had two motions to do this, and hearing no objections, we're gonna do a roll call vote, or we can do a. Roll call. Yeah, okay.
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
And Mayor Fleming?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Okay. All right. Business. Item number 10 is consideration of the parking study presentation and direction for phased implementation and recommendations. And we have Sean and Brian to talk to us about this a little bit. Great report.
And
We're
that-
ready? We got some panelists?
We do. We have a couple folks joining us. Brian's been living in the trenches of parking for a long time. I know some of you on council longer than that in a variety of capacities. This is really one step towards a comprehensive plan to address our citywide parking issues. So the infrastructure committee already heard this item and recommended that it come for your consideration. We'll have the consultant team present their report and recommendations. Of course, you can ask any questions. And then at the end, we would ask that you consider giving staff direction on their various recommendations and how we might tackle them. In the staff report, we broke them down into a couple of categories. One category that we can kind of handle at the staff level in a relatively short amount of time without coming back to you for money, working with the infrastructure committee as our kind of goalposts there. And then the other category being those things that we can work with the infrastructure committee to more fully develop before they come back to you for your adoption, consideration, or approval of more funds. So when we get to that point, after you hear everything from the team, we would appreciate that. And it's Mark Doty and Devyani Padabidri. She's not, is she on there? She is on there.
They're both there. They're there.
Hello, Mark.
Good evening. How is everyone? Mayor, council members, city staff?
Doing all right.
Excellent.
Good.
Good to see you again.
Good. Yes, you as well. I'm glad the weather is better this time than it was the last time I was in Nevada City. So that is nice, definitely. So I have been promoted so I can share my screen. I'm assuming that's what I can do then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. if you hold on just 1 second. Can you see that screen? Perfect. Excellent. All right. So again, my name is Mark Doty with TJKM Transportation Planners. We are returning back to you to present the final recommendations for the parking demand study for downtown Seven Hills. Devyani Padubidri is also with me. Again, she has been a big help. I want to thank specifically the city manager and Brian as well for all of their guidance and direction. As they mentioned, we did meet with the infrastructure committee a couple weeks ago, I guess, earlier in the month. And I appreciate their reviewing the recommendations, the presentation, and giving me the feedback as well. So again, the goals of this meeting are to present the results of the online survey that we conducted, present the data analysis, and then present our preliminary strategies and recommendations, then have a discussion of if you feel like we did a good job with the recommendations, if there's something that we missed that we need to take a look at, and then gain some final or any final direction from you. So project background, again, is to analyze the existing parking demand and supply and to help develop strategies to improve parking in downtown and Seven Hills. We collected data, conducted the parking counts for review. We want to make sure we're consistent with any previous parking plans and other studies. And then we want to obviously consider existing parking demand and then the impacts that any future development in downtown and Seven Hills would have on parking. And of course, we want to make sure those strategies align with the goals of the City of Nevada City entities, stakeholders, and then the citizens and visitors that use the parking there. So if you remember, the study area that we had for downtown is the main historic core, includes the historic district, but then we picked up, Bennett Street there on the west side, High Street, and then Sacramento as well on the east side of the downtown area. And then with Seven Hills, mainly focused on Zion, Starles Avenue with Argyle Way, they're cutting through the middle. So our survey results, I believe is shared. The survey had just, I think, gone live whenever we came to see you in February, was available on nevadacityparkingstudy.com, was promoted through the various City of Nevada City social media and community outlets, Chamber of Commerce, again, all the city social media accounts. I would again like to thank the city manager and Brian for a fantastic job that they did with promoting that because we received over 750 responses along with 600 comments, which is a really good response for a community the size of Nevada City. So going through those survey results, what we did is we broke them down into the downtown sector and the Seven Hills, where we asked a certain amount of survey questions for each section, and then also broke it down further into employers and employees for downtown and employers and employees for Seven Hills. So looking at the survey results for downtown, what best describes you can see the top two. They are Nevada City residents, and they shop, dine downtown. They may not be a Nevada City resident, but they frequently shop and dine in downtown. Again, the location best describes where you live, over 50% elsewhere in Nevada County. So this is reflected in a lot of our comments also, or quite a few of the comments, I want to say, that people drive in to Nevada City from other areas to partake in the restaurants, the shopping, the entertainment that's there. You can see how long is your typical visit for downtown: 1 to 2 hours, 34%; 2 to 3 hours, 25%; and then more to 4 hours, 22%. I don't think this is a huge surprise to anyone. Typically access by car is 76%. You have walking the next at 17%. Typically where people park, it's almost even between either on-street free parking or on-street metered parking. And then you have your off-street public parking lot that is free, coming at 24%. Typically, it takes people around 5 minutes or less for 38%, and then 10 minutes or less, 36% were the majorities of how long it takes people to find their parking spaces. 36% believe 2 blocks is a reasonable distance to walk, and then, followed by 29%, 3 blocks. Which on-street parking limits do you typically use? Again, the 3-hour metered was the most popular. That is the most prevalent within kind of the main downtown core there, Nevada City, and then your 2 hours followed up. And if I'm going too quick with these, just let me know, and because I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you.
Doing great.
Okay. So kind of shifting over to the employers and employees, what type of business, do they work at or own? You can see the government had the majority, a super majority, 36%, but then we had restaurant and retail or other specified as well. Again, how do most people get to the place where they own or where they work? 87% drive alone in their car. Where they typically park, almost, over 43% on the street. And then, almost 30% for in the private parking area provided by their employer or in the public parking lot. Typically, how long does it take people to find available parking? 36% right away, 33%, 5 minutes or less. And I think this is a good number to have and to remember, because it does take people. Again, most of the people that work downtown come in the morning before it gets particularly busy. But then it's always those people that come in, later in the day that typically have a harder time finding parking immediately. So 1 block, almost, over 46%, they park at least a block away. And they believe 2 blocks, a pretty good percentage there, is a reasonable distance for them to walk. And so shifting over now, was there any questions or comments about downtown before we shift over to Seven Hills?
I don't think
Or is
so.
it looking pretty on par with what you think is people would answer?
Yeah, looking good.
Okay, great. So shifting over to Seven Hills, what best describes you? Again, kind of the same as downtown. Either they are Nevada City residents or they live in Nevada County. Not residents of Nevada City itself, but then they come into Seven Hills to eat, dine, and shop. How long is your typical visit? Again, 1 to 2 hours. I think the difference between Seven Hills and the downtown areas, Seven Hills has a lot more, service-based type of retail, the grocery store, you have the coffee shop. Again, that would facilitate more of maybe a 2-hour max time limit. Again, 97%, by car, not a huge surprise, I don't think, to anyone by that. Typically park, again, on-street public surface parking lot, off-street public surface parking lot, which is free, or then the private off-street, and then on-street is 18%. Again, you do have a lot of free off-street parking that's provided, by the businesses that are there currently. Again, typically, how long does it take them to find parking? Right away. So not usually too much of a problem in Seven Hills to find parking when they need to. And they believe that, 1 block is a reasonable distance to your destination if they aren't able to park, in the immediate vicinity. Again, shifting over to the employers, employees, the others, please specify. We do have retail, health and fitness, make up the majority of those. How do you get to the place you own or place of employment? Again, not a huge surprise. They drive alone. And then where do you typically park in the private parking area provided there by their employer? Again, Seven Hills, the makeup of Seven Hills allows for that a little bit more than the downtown area does. Sorry, how long does it typically take to find available parking? Again, right away. For people, typically people can, 1 block is how far would you typically park from work, if they're able to not park immediately, in the immediate vicinity of where they work. And then they believe that 1 block is, a reasonable distance for them to walk to their place of employment as well. As part of the survey, we also were able to collect comments. As I mentioned earlier, we collected over 600 comments, which were very interesting and very enlightening. And we broke them off into downtown, into Seven Hills. The biggest area of concern, obviously, for downtown is for the comments shown that they believe that there should be more in free parking provided in the downtown area, and then outside of that, if they didn't leave a comment at all, then it was just outdated meters, other infrastructure, which again I think was something that we discussed during our meeting back in February. Again, this is kind of runs the gamut all the way down, but again, 471 responses is really good. So we're glad that we were able to get the word out about that. For Seven Hills, the majority of people, the super majority of people, they either didn't comment or they don't have an issue at all with parking in Seven Hills. But if they did, they think that, more free parking should be provided. One of the comments that would come up, not consistently, but every so often, is they think that the new development, especially in Seven Hills, the new apartment development, whenever school is pickup times for the school, that's whenever we had some comments, people feeling that they can really tell that parking is a little tighter than it normally would be during those particular times.
I have a question.
Yes.
Under the area of concern for downtown, it says just a kind of general safety. Can you say more about that? What exactly were their safety concerns?
So some of it was they did not feel safe walking back to their car late at night. I'm assuming this probably is a lot of the employees that work later at the restaurants or the bars there. They did mention the homeless. They felt unsafe because of homeless people. And then there were also a couple of comments about people parking overnight in the free parking lots, that they felt unsafe about that as well.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions about the particular results, the comments?
I have not a question, but I just want to make a comment. I put this out on social media quite a bit and had a few local pages on social media also push it out. And some of the folks were commenting, in true social media fashion, folks were commenting on the post who might not necessarily have taken the survey. And so I just wanted to note that the thing that I noticed the most in the comments were comments about bike infrastructure. And so I do see that there are, 16 people that noted that, but just, social media, which tends to be, specifically Instagram, tends to be a younger crowd. That seemed to be the number one concern.
Right. I think you'll see in our recommendations that we kind of hopefully address that as well, or see that as a possible way to help with maybe some of the parking pressures there, particularly in downtown. But I think Seven Hills could benefit from that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for promoting that. Again, we've done several of these surveys, and this is, I think, one of the higher response rates that we've gotten from a community. So it's very helpful. Again, our entire job is to try to respond to what we hear from the community. And so whenever we hear from them, it makes our job a little bit easier.
I have one quick question, sort of in that general area. Did you folks look at the parking lot over at Pioneer Park as well?
We did not. That was not part of our
Okay.
That was not part of our scope. However, I will tell you that one of our recommendations that we'll get to is about festival and free parking, or where to park for festivals or special events. I believe we notated that may be an option to use during one of those periods, is Pioneer Park.
Yeah. And I take it you didn't look at the tech center either with their 502 parking spaces?
All tucked
We
away
did-
over there.
we did not. But
Out
again,
of
if there,
walking
yeah,
distance.
I think our recommendation that we'll go over is, we think that there are several opportunities for there to be other areas. We know the Chamber uses, I think, one particular area or one particular parking lot right now to kind of have people park at and then have them shuttle back and forth. And we think that there's a couple of other opportunities as well. So if there's something that we need to include in the final report, just as a note, we can certainly do that.
No, I just wanted to, that was more related to the safety issue, because I've gotten complaints about that parking lot and safety issues and people parking overnight and things like that.
Got you. Okay. I think the parking lot that most people were commenting on was the Commercial Street parking lot, or the one there on Nevada Street.
Sure, sure. Or the hidden one on Clark Street.
Yes.
Thank you. Continue. I didn't mean to distract you there from the.
No problem. So again, the data analysis, what we did is we did parking occupancy counts, collected 11 a.m. and then 1, 3, 5, and 7 and 9 p.m. on Friday, December 2nd, and then on Saturday, December 3rd of last year for on-street, block faces, and off-street, public and private, some private parking facilities in downtown Nevada City and Seven Hills. And during the infrastructure committee, or the infrastructure meeting, there was a question of why we picked a Friday and why we didn't pick another day. And what we have typically found is that a Friday parking gives us what we consider kind of the worst case scenario. And so that is whenever your parking is going to be maybe your most heavily used. And so that's one of the reasons why we picked Friday instead of maybe a Thursday or a Wednesday. And then we also looked back at some other parking studies that we had done previously, and we usually picked a Friday, and then a Saturday as well. So I know that with city staff, we felt that those 2 days were kind of back to back were probably the most advantageous from a logistics, and then also just from a budgetary standpoint as well. So for downtown, we counted 739 parking spaces, 556 on-street, 183 are off-street public. And then for Seven Hills, all 151 parking spaces, all of those are on-street with, just 4 that are restricted to city or county vehicles.
Didn't count any of the private spaces in front of the buildings.
So during the parking observed during our weekday, you see there at 1 o'clock on that Friday that we observed, 75% was the occupancy. What I wanted to point out to you is the yellow line that goes across all of these graphs. So that indicates 85%. 85% is kind of an industry standard of the threshold of if your parking is at or above 85% over a period of time, consistently over a period of time, that means that your parking is being overutilized. And if it's below that, then that means it's underutilized. And so I just wanted to make sure that Nevada City, especially downtown, is getting close to that mark, but you don't exceed that mark through this observed time period. Again, this is just a snapshot of one time period, and we know it does fluctuate based off the time of year, if there's special events, et cetera. So again, you reach a capacity of 75% at 1 p.m. on that Friday. For your on-street parking, breaking it down, it was 74%. Your off-street parking, which again is the public parking lots that you have, is 77% at 1 o'clock, and then it tends to trend down from there. On the observed weekend, which was that Saturday, we had a high of 66%, again at 1 p.m., 65% for your on-street parking, and then your off-street was 70%. So your parking lots do tend to fill up a little more on the weekends than they do, than the on-street does on the observed weekend that we saw.
I have a comment.
Yes.
You use the term overutilized parking. I think most people would interpret that as I can't find a parking spot. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, that means that your parking, yes, that it is, your parking is being utilized to its fullest extent and even maybe over its extent. Yes.
So
Demand exceeds capacity.
demand exceeds capacity, as Gary just said. Thank you.
Correct. Yes.
Even if it's not fully occupied.
Well, there's a lot of, yes.
Can you tell us about that 15% between 85 and 100? I'm curious why 85.
That is just an industry standard. I I don't know 100. I don't know what the difference is between the 15%. I just know that 85% is kind of an industry standard of what we use.
I would think those 15% would be really hard to find. You have to cruise around until you find them.
People
That's
will leave town before they find a parking spot. The time benefit.
Got
is
it.
that
That would be about 3 parking spots in the Nevada Street parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, 100% would be there's no parking at all. That there's absolutely no parking spots that are available. And so 85%, as they said, or 85 or above, you're going to have a really hard time finding a parking spot.
That's a better way to say it. Hard time. Not impossible. Mission improbable.
Thank you, that answers my question.
Okay, thank you. So for Seven Hills, during the observed weekday, the occupancy reached a high of 36% at 11 a.m. to about 1 p.m. and then trended downward. And then also on your observed weekend, your occupancy topped out at about 14% on that observed Saturday that we had.
Can I ask about Seven Hills a little bit here? Was there, I mean, obviously, you understand the school traffic issue. It doesn't look like that's reflected on here. I guess most of the people aren't really parking. They're driving.
Sitting in line.
But the parking lot at SPD becomes a de facto parking lot and pickup spot for a lot of, kids. And, I know that, SPD likes it because they get some business out of it, but it also has, I've heard complaints from child, school-age children, folks that, feel like it's overly used by, drop off and pick up for school. Did any of that come on your radar? I know you weren't looking at that lot.
I didn't get any comments in particular that the school, that people were utilizing those lots for school drop off, that it was a de facto. I think they were pretty vague comments of just, whenever school is dropping off in the morning or picking up in the afternoon, it can get a little tight, it seems, especially on Zion Street. So I didn't pick up on anything specific, no.
Okay, thanks.
I also imagine as you're, particularly in the afternoon, you're picking kids up from school, you're out and about, so you might stop and run some errands and park and go do your things while you're out and about.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about the data analysis?
Nope.
Just a comment, just for clarification, when we talk about the occupancy, it's for the whole study area, so it's like downtown, for instance, it's that occupancy of that whole study area. So you'll see in some upcoming graphics, there's the core is like taken, and so it's just a matter of people knowing that there's some outlying places to go, which we all do because we live here. Yeah.
Also, just for number context, I'm not a math person, so I had to Google this. But 15% of 739 spaces in the downtown district is 110 spaces. So, if we're at 85%, there's still 110 spaces left around town, just for context.
If you know where they are.
If you know where they are, yes.
You could always use the Foundry parking lot, which is public parking. I shouldn't say that. I looked.
It's also surprisingly small.
It is, and it's.
Gretchen is watching.
space.
I know, you could kill me. All right, moving. Good. Onward.
Onward and upward. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to be providing our recommendations and strategies for your parking there in downtown and Seven Hills. The first couple of slides I want to say are kind of the low term. We think these are things that the city could implement fairly quickly. That could maybe have a pretty big effect on how people utilize the parking there. And again, that's the direction that we're hopefully going to get from you this evening as well. So number one is just, increase public awareness of your parking options. that is, including, up to date, more readable parking information on, the city website, help have the Chamber of Commerce. There's a portion of the Chamber of Commerce website that talks about parking, but it doesn't provide any kind of a map or anything that's really that usable. Obviously, when people Google parking in Nevada City, you want to, have the public parking lot actually pinned to where it shows those pins of public parking or, free public parking, I guess, there in downtown Nevada City so that people can, find those easily whenever they're on their phone or even if they Google it before they leave the house. And then we think, as you noticed in the comment section, or the comments that we, took, your meters are an issue because, they still take orders. And so obviously having, replacing and installing new meters, we think is something that the city should try to look at in the near term. And they could even pilot, a smart meter program if they don't want to make the investment, in the entire area, which obviously that would be very costly. They could do just on Broad Street or on Commercial Street, maybe just a couple of blocks, maybe in the public parking lot there off of Commercial Street that's currently metered. Again, something that would make it easier for people to use their credit cards, use their phone, use an app, stuff like that. We think that is, would be a very good recommendation or strategy. And then upgrade or install new parking T-stalls. These are the little T symbols that are actually painted on the streets where it tells people where they can park, parking T-stalls themselves. So the map you see here on the screen actually shows your existing infrastructure, the parking with meters, as well as the T-marked stalls. You see the area with the T-marked stalls. You can see that some of the area that we surveyed as part of the parking study does not have any T-marked stalls at all. And so we do feel like that if you are able to actually, differentiate where the actual parking spot is, we think that would, one, give you a better understanding of where your public parking is in terms of the number of parking spaces, but then also hopefully provide a little bit of comfort to the residents that live in those outlying areas around downtown area so that people will be parking actually in a spot and not trying to cram in, maybe blocking driveways, not parking where they should, stuff like that. And so we think these are the first three recommendations, kind of short term. Again, these are short term: upgrade and improve the existing employee permit program. We think it's great that the city has a permit program, but we think it should be reviewed. Maybe give the permit holders the ability to park. If they park further out, then they don't have any time restrictions at all. In terms of if we're encouraging people to actually use the Commercial Street parking lot, then all they have to do is hang the placard on their rear view window, and then they don't have to pay at all. That may be an option. Again, incentives for people to try to park further out. But we think it's a good program that just needs to be utilized or reevaluate, especially for cost. Again, it can be quite a bit of money if people are working in a restaurant or a bar. And so that may be something that the city could look at, is providing incentives or even just kind of the way the pay scale is set up. We did get a lot of comments also that people they don't like parking in the public parking lots late at night because they feel that they are unsafe. And as we were looking around, we did notice that a lot of them don't have any kind of super great lighting in them. And so late at night, that does feel unsafe. So if we're going to encourage employees and other people to park in these parking lots, the city should maybe take a look at investing on improving those. Again, restriping them, better lighting, cut back maybe some of the landscaping that has grown up, especially you can see there on your left-hand side or the right-hand side. That particular parking lot on, Nevada City, there is quite a bit of landscaping and vegetation that, the walkway from the parking space itself over to the street where people can, gain access to the street. It can be a little intimidating, especially late at night for people. So we also think that, installing updated and appropriate signage is good, and this is both for regulatory signage that you have existing or need to install, and then parking specific directional signage. So we noticed that whenever you exit the freeway off of to Broad Street, there is one little sign that is actually hidden in the landscaping there and the trees there that says parking with an arrow. No one is going to be able to see that. And so we think that if there are larger, bigger signs that actually show people where where these public parking lots are located will help a lot. Even the signage that shows you where the commercial street parking lot, it's very small and it's very easy to miss if you are driving down Broad Street and don't know to turn onto York Street. So we think, some parking specific directional signage would be very helpful. And then your regulatory signage as well. You do really well with the 3 hour, noting 3 hour to 2 hour parking limits, but then your loading zones, motorcycle only parking, stuff like that, we think can be added in those areas so that those spaces can be saved and utilized for their intended use. And then your directional, and then this could also go into, I think we talked in the infrastructure meeting about just general wayfinding signage as well for the historic district. Telling people where things are can help as well. Moving to parking for festivals and special events, again, there were several comments as part of the survey that people just, don't even come sometimes to festivals or special events because they just don't feel like there's not somewhere easy to park at. But again, if you kind of spread out and have different areas where people can park and then shuttle those people in, we think that would be beneficial. Obviously, publicize where those would be also. Promote and expand multimodal alternatives. This is where the bicycle infrastructure comes in. We do know there's several projects that are in the works to improve bicycle infrastructure. Obviously, the streets, they're very narrow, especially in downtown, where a bike lane maybe not be feasible. But obviously, we could have, leading to downtown and even through Seven Hills. Seven Hills would probably be a good example of where you could at least add maybe some, preliminary bike infrastructure, some sharrows or signage that say, bike, just to try to encourage bike riding more than what there is now. Obviously, we didn't notice many, if any, bike racks downtown or in Seven Hills. So infrastructure like that helps as well. Maybe bike lockers that can be provided for employees so they can actually store their bikes in a safe and secure location and they don't have to worry about while they're on their shift or working that their bike is going to get stolen. So we think that multimodal, alternatives, that's kind of where we're heading with that. Some cities, also have shuttles outside of events and special programs downtown. That may be something that the city may want to look at as well, especially if we start developing, the parking lots kind of on the outer edges, having a shuttle on a continuous circuit that can pick people up in those parking lots, bring them into the downtown core safely and in a quick manner. For your parking enforcement and existing parking durations, we really didn't see too much of a need to really, reevaluate these. We think that we didn't get any complaints that the 3 hour wasn't long enough, or that the 2 hour wasn't long enough. Again, mainly the complaints were that the parking meters themselves just take quarters and they just aren't up to date. They're just not, technologically friendly. We do believe, we think that the city could, if they wanted to, explore some sort of license plate recognition technology, making it easier for, city staff whenever they're walking around, making a notation of how long people have been, if they are able to use license plate recognition technology, a program or a system that makes it easier for them to do that, but then also can be tied to, any kind of customer service enhancements, paying a bill, or paying not a bill, but if they get a ticket, and then also if they, have a parking permit, then it can be tied in that system as well. And then, obviously can help monitor time limits and permits and payment compliance easier as well. Again, that is something that we think is more of a midterm thing to look at, not really a short term, because again, we didn't get too many, if any, comments about, parking enforcement, other than the typical comments of people just don't like getting tickets. Other than that, but again, most people felt like the time limits were sufficient with what we have right now. Kind of our long-term strategies, shared parking agreements. Y'all mentioned earlier the Foundry parking, spaces on, potentially on, days or evenings whenever there's not an event there. That may be where the city could reach, an agreement with them to provide parking for employees during that time. Again, that would be a closer way for people to park and not have to walk as far back, to their cars. Especially in the evening time, evaluate the dining encroachment program. We know there are this is something that has been put in place, particularly to respond to COVID. Should that be reevaluated? Some people don't like the parklets because they do take away some parking, but there is some benefit to parklets also, because then you have people actually eating and dining and hanging out on the street. And so that helps, especially later at night. That helps with people feeling more safe if they feel like there are people actually on the street, kind of eyes on the street type of a scenario. We know there's in lieu of parking payment program, to where if there's new development or redevelopment, that if they know they cannot provide the required parking, then they can pay into this program that then in turn can be used to improve parking in the downtown area. Review that program. Is that where the fees need to be higher? That's just an option as well. And then again, once you kind of hit that 85% threshold, explore the viability and then just need of additional parking capacity. That could either be surface lots or it could be structured parking. We did get quite a few comments. People think, well, you should just build a parking garage. And while, parking garages are great sometimes, they don't necessarily solve your problems and can also kind of create other problems. And to be quite honest, they are very expensive. One of the things that we noticed with Nevada City that works into your favor is that you have a lot of options if you wanted to go in that direction whenever you feel like the time allows that to happen. Again, whatever the county is going to be doing, I think could it be, we'll have a big say in how you expand parking capacity at a later date. That county parking lot, is really well positioned, especially for, having employees park in that location. And I think we're at the end of the formal presentation, so we're ready for any discussion, feedback. I'm, again, more than happy to go back to any other slides that we need to take a look at. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. First, we're going to check for public comment in the room or online, and then we'll take it to the council. Okay. Adam.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Debiani. Thanks for clearing up what T stalls were.
Yeah.
I read that in the report. I was like, that is a vocab word I did not have, and now I've got it. I feel empowered. Thank you. This is a curiosity I've got. Your firm has helped a lot of places like us, and mostly probably places not like us. How common are just the parking meters that only work with quarters at this point in this particular century?
I would say you are definitely one of the last holdouts.
That was my suspicion, Mark.
Well, it is a historic district.
So if you're really wanting to maintain that historic feel of the downtown historic district, then having the parking meters you have currently definitely contribute to that historic feel.
Wrong era, but it's historic.
Right, exactly.
So what are most places going for then? Is it just credit card terminals, or is it the apps, or is it a combination of all of them?
Yes, it is both. and it can be to where either you have a meter at every stall, or you can have a, you know, kind of a box that's located at the end of the block, that people then, you know, can utilize and then put the actual, you know, it actually records, you know, whatever the license plate number is, or they put like a little tab on their dashboard. You know, the ones that are kind of the bigger boxy things, not the parking meters themselves, that type of equipment, that would probably be better utilized within the parking lots themselves.
Right.
So that whenever people enter and exit the parking lot, it's easy for them to actually utilize those. But again, it's, you know, we don't necessarily, we want whatever system and whatever program works best for Nevada City. That's why maybe a pilot program would be great to work out on a couple of blocks. We're going to try this just with, you know, paying there at the parking meter itself with a credit card. But again, I think I've mentioned this in our first, you know, meeting before you. This is kind of a choose your own adventure. So you can kind of choose what you would like to do. There's no, this is the perfect thing to do, and this is the way you should do it. It's whatever works for your community. But I think really installing some upgraded parking meters will help substantially.
Right. Thanks. And my suspicion is that in terms of Chamber of Commerce meetings I've been to, I feel like a lot of people are unaware of the option of the paid passes and so forth. I think education there would probably be great. That's all I've got. Thank you so much to you both.
Thank you.
Gary?
Well, I don't have any questions. I have plenty of comments.
Lean forward and give your comment.
All right, just wanted to make sure I wasn't
She's getting ready.
I wasn't
That's
gonna
a good
waste
name.
my energy if I didn't have,
Please don't waste your energy.
No. So a number of things. I mean, I really like the report. It's as sort of suspected, it's a parking management problem, not a parking capacity problem.
Right.
And it is all about education. We do have a permit program. I'm not sure I can find anyone that really understands how it works.
And it
Perhaps
certainly doesn't provide incentives for people to work in town.
so,
How does it work?
I don't know.
That's the question.
You pay your $240 a quarter and you can park in the commercial street lot only.
Okay, there you go.
I thought there was something else to it. besides-
Okay, so there's a number of items here. So I want to break it into two pieces. One is is we really need to understand that there's two parts to this. We have a glimpse of parking demand with the study, and we had lengthy conversations about this at the Infrastructure Committee, whether a Friday and Saturday in December was going to give us a legitimate view over which you could measure an entire year.
Right.
And we have concerns about that. However, with that said, you know, it gives a start, a place to start. The recommendations stand separate and all really need to happen. Most all of them need to happen whether we had a demand issue or not.
Yeah.
So, but what we do still need to understand, because parking is always about behavioral change. It's all about, you know, managing people, getting them to do what you want, park where you want. So we're going to need to develop a program that allows us to monitor any changes over periods of time. We need people to come back and look at the parking every so often to see if what we're doing makes sense. I don't think we can do all of these. I think the short-term ones, the informational, educational pieces are really important, because, you know, I went and I did Google, and the only pin you get for a parking lot in Nevada City is Nevada Street, and it doesn't say anything about it. They just get a red pin. So we don't have, and I did look at the direction to the commercial street sign. This is big on York Street, you know, parking.
We have a sign ordinance.
So the other thing.
Commercial street, and there's no, and then you turn here.
Yeah, and, you know, and I do think we need a wayfinding sign system, but it's really important to understand that what cars need to directions to parking when they're driving in a car is different than what people need when they're standing on the street trying to figure out where the restaurants are. So it's important to think about that. I think we've had some historic problems with that because everybody's trying to cram them together. So we've got to be able to tell people where parking is. We've got to have maps. We've got to have information on the internet. I like the pilot idea for, we do need to change our meters. I mean, I could tell you the stories, you hear it all the time. I don't know the right way to go. I do know that the vendors are very eager to make deals with you about equipment that doesn't cost a lot of cash up front to do it. But what do we need and what is the right thing? And I think a bite at a time and a couple of test projects to test out a couple of blocks and see how it works. Because once people start getting used to it, and then you build on it. So I think, I like all of the recommendations. I think, if we need more capacity, we've got that with the potential Clark Street lot that could be paved. It's a little bit of a walk, but, there's ways to deal with that. Miners Foundry, I mean, the issue of shared parking. But here's the other deal. When we look at the capacity and everything before we get to the recommendations, our parking is about to go to hell, period. The bridge on Nevada Street for 2 years, whatever happens with the courthouse, we're taking out parking spaces for multiple restaurants, we're doing in lieu. It's really a dynamic shifting in parking for us. So even, this is kind of where we got, even if we liked the 2 days in December, it's not really relevant because for the next couple of years, it's going to be all up in the air while we just figure out how to get through this. But the changes for education, information, maps, signage, and upgrades, it all need to happen anyway. And I think the sooner the better. I think the infrastructure parking is sort of in the infrastructure committee, but I definitely think that the low-hanging fruit of the information pieces, and then looking at meters first, and start to shift the behaviors, because we're going to be dancing anyway all through this whole thing with where people are. I mean, if you think about it, Nevada Street lot is probably not going to be available for nearly a year or so,
They're going to be
right?
staging in it, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, half
Part of it.
Half of it.
yeah. So it's going to be.
That's going to be a thing.
So that's kind of where we are, but I think we should go forward. I like the study a lot. I really like the recommendations. The recommendations make a lot of sense. I think they're doable. We just have to work through them. But what I always find myself arguing for organizationally is a program. Because we've got to have a parking program, because it's got to be enforced, it's got to be measured, we have to see if it's working, we need to expand it and grow it and move it, and it's dynamic. And so somebody has to be in charge of that, and we have to have a program. That's kind of where I am.
We're going to hire a parking czar.
I was going to say, we can just, we're going to have the
New
guy
title.
who runs the masticator.
We don't have enough money in it yet, but a good parking program will pay for itself
It should.
in that regard.
It should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Gary. Daniela?
Yeah, Gary, you hit on my point. One of the things I've been hearing the longest, I started campaigning and people are talking about parking, number one issue. And I thought that to mean initially that we didn't have enough parking spaces. We do have a parking problem, but like you said, capacity is not an issue. It's really building the educational and signage infrastructure to send people to those extra 110 spaces. I'm thinking about events. I'm thinking about people coming up 49 for Victorian Christmas and having big signs that say event parking this way, that take people continuing up on 49 to the Rood Center. And I know sometimes we've worked with Nevada County Transit to do shuttling. I think that we can do that more regularly, more frequently for more events, and really get that tightly organized. It needs to be organized, and we need to educate people in signage. It's all just, like you said, it's like training folks. It's like training folks where to go when. I'm a big fan in updating the infrastructure. I'm also a really big fan in fixing the employee parking issue. That's another thing I hear a lot, particularly from people not just that work at the city, but work in town, restaurants, retail, that sort of thing. We need a parking program that works for them. And I'm not a fan of a parking structure. I think they're passé. I think they're old. I think they're environmentally a mess. And I think we have the capacity as a city to be a more walkable, bikeable city. And we don't need a parking structure if I would like to see us move in that direction, which means we need biking infrastructure. It means, we need more than one bike rack. It means we need to educate around, I talked to Sean about this today. There's not space in the historic district to create bike lanes. It doesn't mean that people can't bike in the historic district. We just need to educate around that and create the culture so that people feel comfortable and safe enough to do it. And then in Seven Hills District, we do have the ability to create bike lanes in a lot of places. And so I think moving towards that could really, really help out a lot, particularly as our population gets a little younger. Younger folks are moving into town, young families. So yeah, I'm excited to have a more walkable, bikeable city without a parking structure.
If we want a parking.
Thank you, Daniela.
Parking structure, the problem would be how to pay for it.
Exactly.
Well, it would solve the
But what
homeless,
to do with it in 20 years?
it would solve the homeless problem. That's a bad joke. Lou?
Everything everybody's already said, so I'll keep mine short. I really think we need to do more parking occupancy surveys because 2 days in December is not enough. I think most people looking through the data, if they do look through the data, would be astonished to see that the Nevada parking parking lot is occupied less than 75% of the time, most days. And in this case, most days is 2 days in December. So I'm pretty sure if we did more data collection there, we'd find that it is more heavily used and more frequently completely full, as it has been on the 4 days that I went last week to look. I also agree that lighting would help increase the safety, but we have to be careful there to balance that with our dark skies initiative.
Exactly.
And with our historic look. It's going to be a delicate balance, but I think we can do it.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Lou.
Can I?
Of course.
I'm just out of curiosity. Did we get a price break by just doing it 2 days in December? That's a genuine question.
It is cheaper, so
you go.
I'll take the hit for this. Because Brian had lots of options, and it's another vendor. It's not the folks that are with us tonight that does that work, and we're kind of looking for an opportunity for the worst case scenario numbers in the time frame that we had. So this is immediately preceding Victorian Christmas, which is our busiest time of the winter. To Councilmember Peterson's point, it will probably be outdated data in, let's say, 3 weeks.
It is this month.
Because we have seasonal changes, brew built all by itself, maybe it doesn't impact anything. I find that highly unlikely, but it's certainly worthy of evaluating, and many other things. The parklet, if you haven't seen it, in front of Friar Tuck's is under construction. We have a number of factors, so we will certainly work with the council to create this as a baseline that we will continue to ground truth and compare to future analyses, looking towards a benchmark performance.
Thanks.
Nice. Okay, I got a few things. We were talking about bikes and bike parking. Right now I've noticed, and I think everybody else has, that there's a lot of people, not just young folks, older folks are using all these e-bikes.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
they're very expensive. People don't want to lock them up. They leave them right where they are. And so we do need to provide some safe parking that has, some security features that people would feel secure leaving a $3,000, or even a regular road bike is $3,000 these days. So that's something I'd love to see. And let me just talk about the parking structure for a second, because I don't think that anybody on this council has supported a parking structure. I mean, I don't think we've ever talked about that. I think that was a legacy issue without any research and studying, and I really appreciate this study that says, hey, we don't need this structure. So I don't think we, as a current council, I presume to speak for all of us, are not looking to do a parking structure. And so the other options then become a lot more attractive. one of the things, just talking, I'm not going to go in any particular order. I love the idea of the Root Center with shuttles. I think that's great, but we have to factor in the cost of what that would cost us, and how to defray that cost if we were going to pay for the shuttle service on a regular basis, during Christmas and, hot summer nights, or summer nights, rather. And then, talk to me about there's a lot of issues with license plate readers as far as privacy and things like that. But I just needed to understand a little bit more how that helps in this parking dynamic. Mark, if you could just give me a little overview of that.
Sure. I think actually your primary concern is what turns off a lot of communities whenever we actually bring this up as a potential option. Is that people are concerned about the privacy issue. So I want to acknowledge that and, say that is not an uncommon comment from other communities whenever we, present this as a recommendation. Again, we think it would just be helpful mostly with just streamlining your operations, making it easier for your city staff to record how long the car has been in that space for a certain period of time. Again, linking that with, monitoring, the time limits. You could also link up who actually, of your employee pass, who actually is using your employee pass program. That can be linked up with that as well. So if they forget to put their placard up on their, the rear view mirror, if they type in the license plate, then it pops up, well, they have a parking pass, so they're, they shouldn't get a ticket or whatever. And then just payment compliance as well. If people have tickets, it's easier for them to, utilize that as well.
We can boot their car, right?
I'm sorry?
We can put a boot on their car like the old days, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Again, keeping with the theme of the historic, the parking meters and everything. But I do want to acknowledge that is a concern that we have heard many times. Is that it's just a privacy issue. So
yeah. Again,
that's why we weren't exactly making this one of the top recommendations, because again, that's something that you need to figure out, that if you're comfortable with it or you're not comfortable with it. Yeah. There are plenty of other things that have been mentioned that we think could, really help with the parking demand there in downtown in particular, that doesn't include this.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to license plate readers. I'm just bringing up some objections that we will get and we have heard. I just wanted to know if that tech was actually, in my mind, we just don't have the volume here to do something like that, but maybe we do. So
We need to keep Tim walking.
Yeah, Tim needs to say things. So let me just ask about meters and signage. We got a really, I don't know if we all got it, but I got a nasty letter from some guy who got a ticket on Sunday.
It's Tesla.
What? His Tesla. I forgot, yeah. He got a ticket on Sunday, and he was dumbfounded that, we would actually, require parking payment on the Sunday. Is that more common these days than not?
He will never be visiting Nevada City again.
Yeah, it's Tesla.
I mean, again, it is whatever you feel like the city is comfortable with. There are some cities that your parking meters are free on weekends, and they don't charge at all, or after 6 p.m. And I think that's the case actually already with Nevada City in the evenings. But
9 p.m.
Again, I think it's that is where probably the pilot program will help out.
Sure.
To where you can kind of fiddle with it a little bit of, well, let's not charge parking on weekends and see what happens. Because, there are good things that go along with that. And then you have the unintended consequences of, well, people may not just, leave the parking space and they park there all day. Or they, shift around in the 3-hour parking and stuff like that. So I don't think you charging parking on a weekend is uncommon at all, actually.
Fair enough, thanks. I didn't think so. I mean, I know.
And we don't charge on Sundays, so
it was
maybe he had a confusion of the day. And
He's never anywhere he's ever been had to pay to park on a Saturday.
Yeah, ever.
he must not have traveled far, but We'd be happy to talk to him. Chief Foss would be happy to talk to him.
And then, in your research and your work, EV charging, is that, how does that factor in here? Obviously, that's going to, there's issues with EV parking and taking up charging spaces and, was that any part of your study? Was there a factor of EV charging or, a need, or did you get a lot of comments or any comments on it?
We didn't, and I do apologize because that's probably something we should have taken a look at. But I think if there is an option or an opportunity for EV charging stations, that's where your parking lots probably will come into play, because that's where they could probably be set up with having the least amount of the room, I guess, or the capacity to accommodate that equipment would probably be more in your parking lots than actually on the street themselves.
Oh, yeah.
But again, that's where the education, that's where the signage, would come into play. EV charging stations, are located in these particular parking lots.
Okay, thank you. And so, and lastly, the shared parking concept. I'm trying to understand that a little better. That would be working with a private business owner that has a parking lot that theoretically is underutilized, and we
Like
would.
we're doing with the Stonehouse.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the county lot at the courthouse or at the Vets Hall, for example, for evening parking.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out how, because we're having issues with our parking lot over at the Foundry, and that's just another issue.
Foundry, if they wanted to participate.
Strange how you offered it up, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, right now, we're in a battle with there's a shared parking lot, and we can't actually, without an agreement, we can't.
winery?
What?
The winery?
The winery, yeah. Anyway, it's an issue. And then one last,
You said lastly. right?
yeah, lastly, can we go back to chalking tires? Is that a thing?
It is allowable. There was a short term there where the appellate court said we couldn't, but that has since gone away. But Tim doesn't do it, and we don't really see a need to do it. That is the alternative, though, for like 3-hour parking lot.
Yeah.
Would be for him to say, I walk through at this time, write it down on his little notepad, mark all the tires that are there. But there's a variety of options that some include those license plate readers, some include just a camera that, you just walk by and then you review the tape, on your phone as you come back by the next time, see if the same license plate's there. Lots of options there, but I think it would be beneficial to evaluate those for sure.
Chief, while you're here, if you don't mind, what are your thoughts on how to, I'm sure you got a few ideas.
I'll just, I think probably the best thing is I'll just answer any questions you have that I can answer. The few things we touched on a few times, chalking the tires and the license plate readers. I think both are excellent in certain areas. Here, we are blessed with Tim, who is just excellent for this community. I'll give you a perfect example today. He came in and for his break to switch out his batteries and said, there's a vehicle at this location, a vehicle at this location that are going to be at their 2-hour limit or 3-hour limit in 20 minutes. And I was like, Tim, how do you know that? And it's because he walks this town every day, and he knows it probably better than anybody in this town. And he's been walking it for years. The license plate readers, I believe, I'd have to look into it, but I do believe that would have to go through the, I can't remember which prop it is, but would have to come through the council as facial recognition falls into that category. So I'm not opposed to those.
Yeah.
And I think that's something for a city we should look at eventually, but I don't see a need for it for parking enforcement, again, in our community. The chalking the tires, super simple system. 90% of our problem is meter issues. Where it could be somewhat beneficial is because the number one complaint that I receive for meters is not so much that, I'm upset that I have to pay the ticket, but it expired by 3 minutes. And what people don't understand is we don't know if it's expired by 3 minutes or 2 hours. It's expired and it just says expired.
The way it works.
And yeah, and technically it doesn't matter if it's expired by 3 minutes or 2 hours, but that would be something, or if you want to chalk the tires for that, but we're not interested in going down that road because what does that mean? Is there a grace period of 10 minutes? You know what I mean? That's not something we're
You do it
interested in.
twice. You do it
And,
with
yeah.
the meter, then you do it with the
Yeah.
chalk, just to be sure.
So realistically, I loved a lot of the things that they did for signage and some things to get communication and all that, I think is the best way to start. As far as enforcement, especially since we brought on Tim, that the council approved for Tim to come on to full-time position, There was that learning period for about a month where people that were locals had figured out his hours, had to re-figure out his hours. But he is here, you know, I don't want to say his hours again, but he is here full-time now. And that, I mean, Tim is a asset in and of itself that covers so many of these things that are actually options that we, our downtown parking issue is so isolated to one very, you know, specific area that with a trained expert, he handles most of these things I think that we're talking about. So I think it goes more towards the communication and the, yeah, what you had tucked on, Councilmember Peterson, so.
Thank
Any
you, Chief.
questions for me, though?
I think that's it, Chief. I have one last question, and this is really the last one. We ran into some, well, a previous council ran into a little trouble raising parking meter.
He's not going to talk about raising parking rates. He won't.
He
I
won't?
promise you.
Can you just tell us whether our rates are, you know, in the ballpark? Are they low, are they high, are they medium?
I would say that again, that is something that you would need to figure out on your own if you feel like
Fair enough.
You made that crystal clear from day one. That he would be discussing
That
our
was
parking.
almost a,
sorry to kind of pass that.
Well, thank
You
you.
know, again, it's if you were needing to raise the parking rates to help pay for this infrastructure, then I think that is something that, you know, is a consideration.
Okay.
If you don't feel like that is, if there are other avenues or other ways that you feel like that you can utilize to fund some of these, you know, upgrading the parking meters, installing signs, stuff like that, then, you know, I think there's always a concern that if you raise it too much, that people will be completely turned off more than they may already be.
Yeah.
So again, I hate to, you know, pull a Lucy and, you know, pull that football or, you know, punt that football, but I don't think it's out of the ordinary of what y'all are charging right now. No.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the study and all the effort. It really helped us a lot in our, you know, in our journey towards, you know, finding a solution to our perceived parking issues and the real parking issues that actually are there. If anybody else, does anybody? Nope, okay. So thank you.
oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, before he leaves, if you don't mind, and before you make your motion, if you're gonna have one, the team has an implementation plan, it's page 140 of the PDF. And it's got 7 that are 0 to 2 years, 8 through 12 that are 8 through 10 that are 2 to 5 years, and 11 and 12 are 11, 12, and 13 are 5+ years. This has been a problem about 100 years. 100 years ago, we were a combination of horse and buggy, and motorized cars, and the trolley was running up Broad Street. I'm personally, if the council, I mean, I work for you, but I'm not interested in having this discussion 5 years from now.
Nope.
So obviously, we need to, you know, ground truth those numbers and keep on top of them and make sure that as things change, we can adapt. But to Councilmember Peterson's point, all of these things essentially need to be done. So the hope would be that you would give us direction to do the things that we can do now, bring back to the infrastructure the things that need more research, more time, more information, and with the goal being, if it's okay with the council or if it's your will, that we would come back with a comprehensive plan, including the funding, not later than next year's budget adoption. Perfect. We'll do the things we can now, and then next year's budget will say this is what it's going to take. And honestly, all this stuff, you know, I really hate, you know, over promising and potentially under delivering, but this shouldn't be more than a 2-year process.
Agreed.
That's a very long motion, Sean.
I was going to say,
I don't make motions. I get paid by the letter.
From a legal perspective, I think if staff has direction, I don't think a motion is
I
necessary
don't
at
think
this
a
point.
motion is.
so we provided direction, a phased approach, do what you can now, and, you know, come back to us with the plan on how to do the hard stuff.
That is perfect.
All right, do I have a motion besides?
It would be good to,
Yeah,
if
we
nothing else, receive and file the report.
I move that we accept and file the traffic report and have adequately provided direction to the city manager on how to proceed.
Except I just want to make a note that it's the parking report, not the traffic report.
Excuse me, the parking report.
The weather report.
Dean's okay with it? We got a first, we got a second, we got a roll call?
Councilmember Cece? Yes. Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
And Mayor Fleming.
Of course.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Brian, thank you,
Brian.
Mark, thank you, Chief, thank you, Sean, this is a lot of work, thank you, Infrastructure Committee.
Not me, Brian and the
Infrastructure.
TJKM team, yeah.
Okay, all right, moving along onto item 11, consideration of a contract with Desert View Power LLC for, bye, Mark.
Bye,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Again, it was a pleasure working with you. We appreciate all the support and comments we got from Nevada City. Sean and Brian have been amazing, and the rest of the city staff as well. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 11, consideration of a contract with Desert View Power LLC for the purchase of attributes for biomass energy production to fulfill SB 1383 recovered organic waste product requirements, the payment of fair share costs to Pioneer Community Energy JPA for securing the contract and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract and any related documents. Take it away, Sean.
So as you know, SB 1383 requires cities, counties to procure annually a quantity of organic waste products to meet their procurement targets. It phases in over time. This year it's 30%, 65% next year, and then 100% in 2025 and thereafter. Our procurements are in that timeline 74 tons, 159 tons, and then 246 tons in 2025 and beyond. There are 4 types of organic materials that will meet that requirement: compost, mulch. If you don't know the difference, compost can go in with your soil, mulch can only go on top of your soil, but they can be exactly the same thing. And sometimes they look exactly the same. Renewable energy from anaerobic digestion and electricity produced from biomass compliant attributes. So when this presentation came before you from Pioneer Community Energy JPA, you asked that we evaluate alternatives as one thing. There aren't any, is the short version. So nobody in our local area is collecting, doing what CalRecycle requires them to do to make it SB 1383 compliant, either compost or mulch, right? And then even when they do, the volume won't be sufficient. And then in a couple of years, we'd have to find 246 tons worth of compost. I'm hoping we're generating our own compost in a smaller volume out of reducing single use in our restaurants and using compostable materials where we make a small amount that can be used by the community instead. All that being said, at today's prices, non-SB 1383 attributes, which are inherently more expensive because of the tracking cradle-to-grave process, if we were just to buy compost or mulch, it'd be significantly more expensive, 10 to 20% more than doing this contract. So not that you have to do this contract, but there aren't really any other options to comply. There are some cities who have taken the we just won't comply approach. Generally not a recommended approach when you're dealing with a government agency, especially one that has a very strong enforcement division now. And a lot of money, yeah. So in your presentation that you received from the JPA, I think the biggest thing was that we had received a public comment that there was a notice of violation at the site that they had been proposing to use. And so Councilmember Peterson has been to the board meetings where they've been reviewing this. I think the Pioneer Energy, Community Energy JPA has done a great job of researching this, being very responsive to it, and
Quickly, too.
very quickly.
They never hesitated. They took everything we said at face value, which is really interesting.
Yes.
And extremely rare. And then they dealt with it. Wow. Immediately, quickly, and precisely. That's pretty cool.
Yes. Usually the natural reaction is to just, are you sure? Are we, question
There
that.
goes-
Look into it.
There goes
Exactly.
Nevada City again.
That night we had a response from them, and the next day we had a this is what we're doing. So, so I would say that their investigation was exhaustive. When the contract is talking about Desert View Power LLC, it's referred to as Greenleaf and everything else that was talked about by Pioneer. So it basically, here's the summary. Greenleaf now represents and warrants, including in this contract, that they've not received any additional notices of violation relating to the biomass facility. Cal Recycle, the state agency, does not regulate what they received the notice of violation on, but they did confirm that what they did receive a notice of violation on won't affect their ability to deliver this SB 1383 compliant materials. And there's provisions in the contract that if that were ever to happen, then the contract's over. So that was all put in there. If they get an NOV or anything else from a governmental agency, then they have a very brief window to remedy that, and if not, then they're in default. They have 20 days from receipt to remedy or be in default. That's pretty fast turnaround. And then they're going to disclose as part of their annual reporting to us under the agreement any NOVs, written determinations, material noncompliance. So we'll have a touchback, and this is not all of the Pioneer Energy, Community Energy JPA members, but it's a fair number of them. So there'll be others that are in this boat that do much more with Cal Recycle on a regular basis. So they'll be able to help us in that regard. And then they also pushed out the deadline was going to be June 30th. Now we have till July 31st, 2023 to agree to the contract. The pricing remained the same in the contract. So I used, for purposes in the staff report, I used the most expensive schedule, Schedule 1. If collectively all of the JPA agencies get to a certain tonnage of purchase, those costs could go down, but they can't go up more than that Schedule 1. So for us, at $31.50 per ton in 2023, it's $2,331 which is very inexpensive. It goes to $51.59, then $82.21 in 2025, and then presumably thereafter we have a pretty stable level of solid waste collection, including edible food waste. So 3-year aggregate would be $15,711. But it could be less than that potentially if we got to Schedule 2 or Schedule 3 pricing. The reason Pioneer Energy basically used their staff and their legal services to negotiate this contract, we love Dean, but if we would have paid him to do it just on our behalf, we'd we'd pay for the entire cost of that negotiations. In this case, we're paying our representative share to the Pioneer JPA. We don't exactly know what that number is going to be, but it's probably going to be in the order of, 20 to 10% of $20,000 is where we'll likely end up. But this request tonight is to approve the contract definitively with a high-end cost of that Schedule 1 for the purchase of the attributes, and then to authorize me to pay the Pioneer Community Energy JPA the fair share for the negotiation of the contract when we get there. I know that's a lot. I did put in the staff report that this is an unfunded mandate, and there are no grants that will pay for this. So we're left with comply or not comply. I personally think this is a great stepping stone. Since there are no other options for us, we do this for the next 5 years as things start to come on board as other options, and there's a lot of work being done in that space, both in biomass electricity and biodigestion, which produces methane, natural gas to either fire a generator to create electricity or to sell back natural gas to the grid, one of the two. Hopefully there'll be options for us in the future here, but this seems like a best case scenario for us, and one that is green and pretty consistent with this city. So that's the long-winded version of it, but would seek your approval for that contract tonight.
But we could take that 74 tons of compost and do lots of things with it.
Yes.
Bury our
Yeah.
whole city.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to
Fill
find
up Pioneer Park.
fill
We can
potholes.
fill up the pool.
We could give it to residents, sell it to farmers.
Yeah, 74, I think I could do the 74 1 year. I don't know if I could do it 2 years. Could never, the 256 tons a year after 2025.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Do we have any public comment in the room or abroad or online?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, bring it to the table, Lou.
Yeah, I have a brief rant. And this is, comes from my perspective as the son of my father, an arch-conservative Republican. What the heck is this bill for? What does 1383 do? What does it measure? What is the benefit? And in particular, it is very hard, I think, for the average citizen to see the connection between the expense the city is going to have to spend and the benefit that the citizen will see. That may be a problem of our not explaining it to them correctly or sufficiently, but no one has explained it to me, and I'm not a dummy. So I would appreciate.
It's just greenhouse gases.
I would appreciate something that tells me how we're going to use 200 tons of mulch.
You know, I cannot speak for what the legislature's desire was, but the outcome of SB 1383 is to fundamentally reduce edible food waste. So take things that could be eaten and get it to people that can get it to people that will eat it. I think that's a positive, regardless of how they did it, which may not be a positive. And to also take the non-edible food waste and keep it out of the landfill.
Yeah.
Both of those things are noble endeavors that we should be undertaking. I would note that our businesses, our restaurants already do those things. Our restaurants downtown, don't throw away food that could be eaten. They get it to, one of the places that can distribute it.
Particularly because climate resiliency is one of our embedded strategic initiatives.
Yes.
There you go.
All great things. How they implemented it was they make us responsible for tracking all of these things. But as our legislature has done relatively recently with a fair amount of success, you may not like it, but successful nonetheless,
Put it on the
is that
cities.
they are creating a forced industry around the legislation. So what we are required to do is buy recycled paper, because recycled paper costs more than regular paper. It's actually worse for the environment too. Nonetheless, we're required to do that by building that industry. The hope is that over time the prices go down and it becomes more palatable to recycle more and more paper. And then they're also requiring us to do this, build an industry around using these things that would otherwise have gone in the landfill for some other purpose. In this case, yes, we're being forced to do something. Yes, it costs money, but something that would have already gone to the landfill now won't, because we're going to buy it, and it'll be converted into renewable electricity source, which I think on totality is a good thing. How we got there and the fact that our taxpayers have to pay that is not for me to determine, but it's certainly not something that we would have done on our own, even though we would have done all of those other things put together.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest, causes of, carbon going into the air is from the, Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, and they also now enforce it with cameras in their trucks to look at the garbage, and they will tell you if they see, organic waste going into your trash, you will get fined. I don't know if, private people might be exempt here still.
Yeah, we don't have this the county, Waste Management serves us, Grass Valley, and the county, all of Western Nevada County, and there isn't a process for diversion of edible food waste in the garbage, or basically they only do green waste. So there will have to be a process eventually, and yeah, absolutely, they're gonna ding you, just like they do now. If you put a bag in your recyclable container, the camera catches you.
Well, I will be happy to see, and be proven wrong, if in 5 years we do see a reduction in greenhouse gases because of this process.
We most certainly will.
Well, and the part about your father there is my experience with some folks of that political bent is whether they believe that there's actual
Climate change.
climate change going on. or
Right,
not.
exactly.
I have no doubt of that. I just doubt that this is the way to address it.
You know,
It's a piece of the puzzle.
so I've lived through a lot of these, Lou, and, you know, before this one, I committed 7 years of my life to managing groundwater, which the state of California had never done before. And they created an entire cottage industry, again, around this one specific legislation of people showed up suddenly to be experts on stuff that no one had ever done. So, you know, we have a habit of this. It does affect change. It does affect change. I don't know that it's always the change that we expect to get or the change. In fact, I think very little change that we get is what we expect to get most of the time with change efforts. But it will change it. And I think there's a lot of importance around the awareness of this. But I also think if you really want to keep yourself in where biomass is going, because there's Doug and I said on an interview, we were interviewed by a couple of people, we're trying to find enough feedstock, they call it, to build a biomass plant in either Placer, El Dorado, or Nevada County. But given the Forest Service won't play and tell them how much wood they might give them, they're scrambling to pick up every little toothpick from every little, how much waste can you produce in Nevada City? You know, we're going, well, we think it's a great idea, but I don't know, we can give you a couple of logs. You know? But it's coming. It's got to come because it marries up forest clearing, it marries up climate change, you know, and it generates electricity. So
Yeah, and it's an unfunded mandate, which is the thing that really just sort of.
those are illegal, right, Dean?
All
Anyway, so I will, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say I appreciate that question. I think it provides a good opportunity for discussion and allows people who might be tuning in to know what the heck we're talking about. So thank you. And I have no further comments or questions.
And sorry, Mayor, if, with your permission, to that point, we have on our website a solid waste page. It basically just explains our contract with Waste Management, and that's their responsibility. We certainly could, if you approve this tonight, we certainly could add that information about this and what it is. It already has information about SB 1383 and the requirements and things like that, because we're obligated to put that on the website. But a more user-friendly information for our community, and then we can update that as you get feedback from the community as to its effectiveness.
Great, I'd like that. Excellent. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Daniela. Gary, I'm going this way. You still have anything?
No, I said everything. Adam, did you have a?
Yeah, it seems like maybe a few years from now, we'll have access to the technology to turn this stuff into power, usable power, put it in the grid, et cetera. What are we doing with our tonnage this year? Where's it going?
That, well, it'll get purchased and it will get, in Southern California, it'll get made into electricity.
Yeah.
No, we don't get the electricity.
We don't get the electricity.
Are they going to
But
send
as
us a
more of
card?
these come online, this will be green energy that is easier access for people like Pioneer Community Energy, JPA. It's hard for them to buy power not knowing if something will be in business a couple years from now. So they need long-term access to power. So things like this will be beneficial to our participation with Pioneer Energy.
In time.
Thanks.
In time.
All right. Thank you. You got anything else?
I was just going to move that we approve the contract and the payment and authorize the city manager to execute the documents and all documents associated with the purchase of attributes for biomass energy production to fulfill SB 1383.
Second.
Dean?
I second.
He's not going to comment.
It's not a resolution or ordinance, so we're good.
Mildly thorough.
Yeah, you had to do that. All right. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Cece. Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fernandez.
Yes.
And Mayor Fleming.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to our final matter, which is always exciting. Item 12, consideration of the second amendment to the employment agreement for city manager between the City of Nevada City and Sean Grayson. Let's take it away, Dean.
Thank you, Council. I assume everybody's read the staff reports, and I'm going to refrain from reading it verbatim back to you. However, under the government code, I am required to give a verbal summary of executive compensation changes. And so your city manager has approached the council, is asking for an amended employment agreement. I would say that the majority of the requests are for the purpose of aligning the provisions, the compensation and benefit provisions of the management and supervisor's MOU with his compensation package or with his employment agreement. Those requests at this time, Grayson's current employment agreement provides 3 years, contained a term of 3 years. He's requesting that term be extended to a 5-year term. Under the category of salary adjustments, Grayson is requesting a change in base salary effective July 1, 2023 from $164,300 to $179,087. That represents the 4% base salary increase and the 5% longevity pay that is contained within the management and miscellaneous bargaining units and provided to other employees. Also requesting a change in base salary effective prospectively July 1, 2024 to $186,250.48, and that will match the 4% increase that's being afforded to all other employees in that bargaining unit as well. Under the category of health insurance, Grayson currently is provided a $2,200 a month payment in lieu of enrollment in city health insurance coverage. He's requesting an alternative option to either be paid the in lieu of health insurance premium or the option to enroll in a city-provided insurance program. That premium payment, or the easiest way to explain that is the premium cost of his provided insurance or the equivalent of the city plan, whichever is less under that option. Under the category of vacation leave, Grayson's current contract provides for 15 days per year with an accrual cap of 240. He's requesting an increase to 20 per year with an increase to an accrual cap to 320, again, aligning that with what is provided to other employees within the bargaining unit. With respect to severance and termination, Grayson's current contract calls for 30 calendar days written notice for not-for-cause separations and 6 and 6, that being 6 months salary and 6 months COBRA benefits. He's requesting an increase to 90 calendar days written notice for not-for-cause and 9 and 9, 9 months of severance and 9 months of continuing COBRA coverage. With respect to certification pay, Grayson is requesting a 1.25% special certification pay and a 2.5 special certificate pay incentive, again, for certifications which Grayson does possess, and that is provided to all other employees under the same MOU. The effective dates I've already referenced moving through here out. And then lastly, in terms of budget, all of the increased costs from both salary adjustments and certification pay are budgeted for in the 23-24 annual budget. And the retroactive payment is budgeted in the 2022-23 annual budget and the city manager department level budget. That concludes my report. I'll answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Dean. Is there any, I know he's really good at this. Is there any public comment in the room? Anybody want to comment on this online?
Nobody in the room and nobody online.
Okay, let's take it to the table.
Chief, you don't have any comments on it?
He's like, my year comes up next month.
Adam, take it away.
All sounds reasonable to me. I'm a big believer in paying workers for their work, and I think all of us at this table know we would not have had the year that we had without this man. All makes sense to me. As far as Second Amendments go, this is probably my favorite.
That was good.
Hey, Adam, I
That was good.
I laughed.
See, there, I tell you, that's your future. That was beautiful. It took him a while, but.
No, I got it.
I'm joking, Gary, I'm joking.
I don't know what Lou's dad would think about it.
But go ahead, Gary.
No, ditto. Ditto. No, I think it's well in line, and go for it.
Your microphone.
I think that we are getting off
Yes.
easy. I think it's getting off cheap. I love that I mean, to me, this says he's committing to an extra 2 years here with us, which I love. I know that he is still making less than his predecessor in her current position. So we have to, a goal we talked about recently was getting our people on the same level as Grass Valley, so we don't have the attrition, that people come here and they want to stay here, not looking to us as a stepping stone. So over the next 5
We
years.
are not a stepping stone to Grass Valley, okay? I just want to be clear about that.
Okay, well, as far as higher pay and higher benefits, and that's why, well,
We're also a third of their size.
yeah. But, I still think we can get there, and this is a step in the right direction. Daniela, take it away.
Yeah, so much of what you said, Dean, is just about catching him up to the standards of what other staff are receiving, and you're worth all of it, so I support it all.
Thank you.
Lou?
We're getting a bargain.
Yeah. Yeah, you should ask for more.
Undershot it.
Easy.
I'm just happy that I could be here for 5 years.
Yeah, and we're happy that you're considering to be here for 5 years. So the next thing I think we need to do as a council is find him a home for him and his
It
family.
all seems to be working out,
Yeah.
Gabby found a house for me right up at the street.
Really?
Well, I don't know if it's commercial yet, though. They haven't called back.
That new
All right,
little one
well,
that they're
so your
building
look,
next
I
to-
think that I'm glad that people are helping him with that effort. So unless there's any more comments here, I'd like to see a motion on this, approve the, well, does somebody else do it?
I move that we approve the Second Amendment to the employment agreement with City Manager Sean Grayson.
I second that.
First by Adam, second by Daniela, and we get a roll call, please.
Councilmember Cece? Yes. Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Fleming?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Excellent. All right, and we're moving on to the final stages of the evening. And do any council members have a burning desire to talk, or do we want to do the city manager's report first, or anybody? Lou?
I'll sign it right now, huh?
Present at the next 2 city council meetings.
Boo.
Singing and dancing 100 yards away from here.
I'll be there with you, running the concession stand. For the food bank.
Do come see Guys and Dolls is going to be a terrific production.
We should have a council day when we all go on a field trip.
I'm going to go with my friends.
Oh, I guess we're all not.
Wow. Wait, wow.
Okay.
God. Wow.
Who else has committee stuff for council?
I'd just like to say that we had a really positive pride flag raising ceremony. I missed the last meeting, didn't get to say. There were about upwards of 200 people there. Our in-house Public Works Director Shane was a highlight as the flag bearer. Had a good conversation with him, appreciated his efforts on that. And yeah, just really excited to be celebrating Pride in Nevada City and have received many, many comments and messages from folks who agree. And that certainly far outweighs the people who don't agree. And then I got a new knee 3 weeks ago, tomorrow. So I've been out of commission for a little bit. And just want to note that next month our meetings will be on Thursdays because of summer nights.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, party deal. Well, yeah, I don't know, maybe we should keep them on Wednesday nights, we get some attendance.
People come rolling in.
We'll just have the hot wine in here.
Yeah. Well, it might be interesting, it's like-
You can do it.
Okay, thank you, Daniela. Gary?
No, I just, I continue to work with Pioneer Energy and find that extremely interesting and rewarding and work. And their contract tonight is just one example of their extremely high level of competency. I found it really interesting is that I passed 2 budgets in one day, well, in 24 hours. I passed our budget for like 6.2 million, and I passed their budget for 222 million. within a 24-hour window. But 99% of theirs is energy bought, energy sold, period. I mean, the pie chart has got this little tiny other sliver where they run everything else. But very well-run organization. Again, Doug and I participated in a regional conversation about biomass. I thought it was really important and interesting. See where it's all going, so we're staying on it. But otherwise, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, I think I'd mentioned that I finished the Citizens Academy up at the county, which was great, but now that I am done, I am back at the Chamber of Commerce Board meetings. A lot of talk about Constitution Day parade and so forth at that last meeting. You'll be hearing more soon about that, I'm sure.
Do you have to be the same president again?
No, I've upgraded from Polk to Truman.
Why are you not JFK?
Why is he not JFK?
Why are you not JFK?
Ladies, please.
Oh, that's good.
It's simply not up to me.
There's some seniority in.
I'd like to know who's playing JFK.
But not nearly as good as him.
Wait a minute.
Who's holding on?
But why was Daniel from the dispensary playing Joe Biden?
That was, yeah.
We're in a room that is mostly very old white men, and Daniel from the dispensary is playing Joe Biden. It's like they had a wealth of options, and they're like, let's get that handsome young guy.
Well, but, you know, if you think historically, the move from Polk to Truman, that's huge. That's a big jump.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And Ann is thrilled to be Bess. Yeah, that's going on. I didn't think we'd end up talking about it that long.
Was it a lot?
Who are you going to be this year?
That's what I said to them. They came up to me one day at the Dalton Family Service Commission, this guy, nice, liberal Democrat, was like, well, we had this March of Presidents, we do this thing. I said, what do you need, a Kennedy? I can do Nixon. And he's hemming and hawing, and our Obama left town. And so I've been trying to go for some other ones.
Mix it up.
One year,
I understand Polk is open.
I do have to tell you that one year, they could not find a Michelle Obama, and I had to walk with a cutout of Michelle Obama my second year. It was sad.
I maintain Daniela would be an outstanding President Washington.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's another tough one that's really battled over. Mel's not going to give that up.
You know, I hear Polk is open, so.
My mutual friend with Lou, Jonathan Hansard, who plays trumpet in my band and has performed with Lou on stage, has taken on Polk, which is also funny because Polk was a tiny, bitter man, and Jonathan is tall and handsome and jolly. I'm going to miss the 4th of July parade in Grass Valley. I'm going to be in North Carolina visiting my sweetheart's family, but I'll see you guys all when I get back.
Family.
Oh, I've met them. They've already, they come pre-dazzled.
Ask a question?
Okay, moving on.
Sorry, no pressure. I got nothing, I continue to start looking into what's going on over at the Tech Center. Hopefully, we're going to have the Nevada City Yacht Club open up there soon, which will be...
I don't understand.
It's at a car place. It's called the Nevada City Yacht Club, and they're going to have a Woody as the bar, and they got all kinds of plans. But I would like, for you folks, if you get a chance, I could go out there with you one at a time. I could introduce you. Chris wants to meet you about the Labyrinth. There's all kinds of opportunity out there for any kind of rec or features, meditation centers, yoga centers, where there's a lot of opportunity out there. So I encourage you all to take a look and look at some of the businesses that are out there. And, I think it's going to be an important place in a year, I think. Anyway, moving on, this has been great to be running these meetings and being mayor. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your service.
Done a fine job.
Well, thank you. It's a tough job, I'll tell you. And I'm happy to turn it over to Daniela. You'll do so great at this position. And you're vice mayor.
Yeah.
All right. Whoa.
And you've been ravenous about attaining that title.
You have.
Oh, I know, I'm just ambitious as hell.
Unbelievable. Reaching that brass ring.
It's just every morning I wake up.
I move that we adjourn.
Did we hear from the?
Sorry.
He's got to dance for us a little bit. He's getting
I apologize.
I have 9 pages. For those watching at home, the fee waiver program ends on Friday, so apply and get your business license for only $4, or use up the money. The
Oh,
council
wow.
graciously
I
put that
probably
out there. It ends June 30th. City Hall will be closed on the 4th of July. Join the council at the parade. It is in Grass Valley. Grass Valley is a great place. When you're done with the parade, come back to Nevada City and eat here, shop here, do something else in Nevada City. Nothing wrong with that.
If I leave.
And that, I will leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Now,
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Third.
all those in favor? Aye. All those, my last one. There. Here, Madame,
Look at that.
may I hand you?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you